Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Monday morning. Happy Halloween, happy Samhain. Tomorrow and the next day are Day of the Dead. It's the best time of the year. Happy New Year. Yeah, you heard that right. October 31st is actually New Year for those of us that observe the more pagan traditions. So welcome to this really, really exciting reading today. I can't wait. To those of you who are new to the channel, please like and subscribe, and let's get started. So how does this work? Every Monday, I come on and I will show you 3 little trinkets or gems or stones. From a slightly meditative state, I ask you to select which one you are drawn towards, and then I pull 2 cards from each of the decks. So that's basically 3 readings, 6 cards, and the cards that I will be pulling for you will be the dominant energy for this week, as well as a shadow energy, something that perhaps you're not seeing or not aware of that you need to kind of keep in the back of your mind for the week. All right, so without any further ado, let's get started. I always start by cleansing and clearing the air and calling in some helpers. So I have my white candle, and this one is for Day of the Dead. So I'm going to light that. And as I light that candle, I call in the Creator, Mother Earth, angels, ancestors, and animals. I call in the energies of the 4 directions, the north, the south, the east, and the west. And I call in the elements. There are 5 elements: earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. And I express gratitude to all of the helpers that come in and assist in the readings to make sure that they are in the highest interest of everyone involved. All right, and I always light some sage or copal or incense, and I use the smoke to cleanse and clear my electronics, as well as the cards that I'm going to use. So let me just remind everyone that I am not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. So anything that you hear today is given as a general reading. Some of it will resonate with you, some of it may not. I do recommend, although I do put timestamps in, I do recommend that people listen to all 3 readings, because quite often there is overlap as to what resonates with people. As I mentioned, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, so anything that you hear today that may be construed as advice isn't truly advice. What it is potentially suggestions, but always keep in mind free will. It is up to you as to how you interpret these readings. Okay, so I'd like to ask everyone to take a couple of deep breaths and put yourself in a light meditative state. Begin to relax. And I'm going to present you with 3 different articles. And before you make your decision, make sure that you see all 3 of them. And then make your choice as to which one you are intuitively most drawn towards. Okay. The first one is what is known as a Herkermer diamond. This one is actually a double point at the top here, and we have a little baby Herkermer on the back side of this. So if you are drawn towards this Herkermer diamond, then I will be pulling cards from deck number 1 for you. The second little trinket that I'm going to present is a Canadian Looney. Now, this is actually not a real Looney. This is a chocolate covered Looney, and I always keep a few of them around the house because they represent abundance to me. So if you are drawn towards this chocolate covered Looney, then I'll be pulling cards from deck number 2 for you. And finally, we have a piece of rose quartz, and this is a piece of raw rose quartz. I'll say that 10 times fast. It is not polished, so if you are drawn towards this piece of raw rose quartz, I'll be pulling cards from deck number 3 for you. Okay, let's move things around here. All right, so come on back. I hope that you've made your decision about whether you are drawn towards the Herkermer diamond, the chocolate covered Looney, or the rose quartz. And let's get started. We're going to do the reading for the Herkermer diamond first. And we will be pulling cards from the Angels and Ancestors deck by Kyle Gray. I do want to point out that there are no affiliate links in this video. I don't receive any kind of money. If you decide that you really like one of these decks, I don't know, I might do that in the future, but I haven't done any of that yet. These are just the decks that resonate with me when I'm doing my readings. So please enjoy. All right. So Angels and Ancestors, we need one card. Oh, I don't know if you guys saw that, but we did have a card flip right over. So that is going to be your card. Those of you that selected the Herkermer diamond, this is your guiding energy this week, the shapeshifter. Transform and unveil your gifts, the shapeshifter. So, what does all of that mean for all of you this week? Basically, what it means is that there is change in store for you this week. We are entering a new month. In just over a week, we are going to be having both a full moon as well as an eclipse. And so there is significant change in the air for a lot of us right now. Change affects some of us more than others. So for those of you that selected the Herkermer diamond and deck number 1, this is indicating that there's going to be significant change for you. I'm not sure if it's going to come into focus or not, but you can see just the shadow of a snake swirling around up at the top of the card. And you can also see the representation of the hawk on the card, as well as a wolf. And there is the tail of the snake swirling down in the bottom here. So there's lots of animals represented on this card. So what do these animals indicate for us? The majority of the animals represented on this card are animals that, when it comes down to survival, they are individuals. Yes, the wolf is typically a pack animal, but when push comes to shove and it comes to survival, it's every wolf for himself. Same with the hawks, and same with the snake. Okay. So part of this card is a representation for those of you that selected this deck, that the change that you are going to go through is a very individual change. It's something that you have to go through and that you have to experience yourself. I also want to point out that up in the top corner here is the representation of the full moon. And as I mentioned at the beginning, as the card turned over, we are going into full moon and an eclipse. I believe it's on the 8th or the 9th of November. I'm not sure of the exact date right now. And so this card is indicating that that is when this energy is going to fully come to fruition for you. This energy of change, this energy of transformation. This card says right on it, unveil your gifts. So to me, this is telling you that right now, the change that you are going through is an opportunity for you to be reborn in some way, for you to really, truly allow your gifts to come through. So what can happen for a lot of us, this is just coming up, what happens for a significant number of us is that we're born into this world and we are meant to be artists, singers, songwriters, writers, painters, whatever the case may be. This is just an example, hypothetically speaking. And then the family that we're born into says, you can't be an artist. You're never going to make any money doing that. Go be a lawyer. Go be a doctor. Go to school. And the whole time, your heart is sinking lower and lower. Your energy levels are sinking lower and lower because what you were truly meant to do is being suppressed every day. And so what this card is asking you to do and telling you is that the time is right for you to go back to those dreams, hopes, and desires that you once had. To truly come into your own power and to be who you were meant to be means that you need to let go of or shed the skin of that which other people put on you. And then your gifts can be reborn. And that's really what this card is about this week. And that's what that energy is about, is having you begin to shed that skin of that which no longer serves you. And what doesn't serve most of us is what other people told us we should be. All right. So your shadow energy, this makes so much sense. Your shadow energy this week is Father Sky, trust in the unknown. Okay. And you'll notice here that there's an eagle. So you have a lot of air energy around you right now. You have the energy of the feathers, energy of the air, the capacity to be able to soar on high, so to speak, having both a hawk as well as an eagle figure prominently on both of your cards this week is an indication that you have a lot of support from air. Some people will even say that the birds, when they come in readings, represent our angels coming in because of the feathers, which means that you're being supported. But this card is in the shadow position of your reading. And when a card comes up in the shadow position, it's an indication that this is being hidden from you, or you are hiding this from yourself. And what you are hiding from yourself is trust. You are not trusting yourself right now. Okay. So you're going to find it very difficult to go through a change and a transformation and allow your gifts to come through if you're not trusting in the unknown. Okay. Deep down inside, we know what our gifts are. But if our gifts have been suppressed by society, family, friends, school, whatever, if our gifts are being suppressed, then they become unknown to us. And so the shadow comes up that we are hiding our gifts from ourselves. And so we have to trust that if we're going to go through shapeshifter type changes, we have to trust in the unknown. And so this is what's being hidden from you. This is what you've hidden from yourself. And when you begin to trust in the unknown, then your gifts are going to come forth. All right, so that is deck number 1 for those of you that selected the Herkermer Diamond. Thank you for joining me. I do suggest that you watch the other videos as well for the other 2 readings. And let's move on. All right. Those of you who selected the chocolate covered Looney, this reading is for you. We're going to be using the messages from the Spirits of Nature deck by Stephen D. Farmer. Let's get started. I'm just shuffling around my foot. I often sit with my feet up while I do readings. And I put one of my feet to sleep today. All right. So we need a card to represent the guiding energy for those who selected deck number 2, those who selected the chocolate covered Canadian Looney. Okay, we've got a card here that's sticking up, so we're going to take that card. Crystal Quartz. Focus. Those of you that selected deck number 2 this week, this is your dominant energy. This is about focusing. Okay. So what's coming up for me intuitively is that there has been some energy surrounding those of you that selected deck number 2, the Looney. There's been energy surrounding you right now where you're being pulled in this direction, pulled in that direction. You know, you get out of bed in the morning with all of these great intentions to go and complete some work or some project, and then you get sidelined and you go and clean the stove instead of doing what you actually need to get done. Okay. You know, you may have a paper that you're supposed to be writing, and instead of doing that, you look outside the window and go, I'm going to go sit in the garden. Wait, meditation is supposed to be good for me. Let's go meditate. And ultimately, the paper is not being written. So there's this card is telling you that in order to be able to accomplish what you want, you really need to focus. So the reason that this card, the focus on this card is represented by the crystal quartz is because in order for quartz to form, it has to be compressed over thousands or even millions of years. And so this card this week is reminding all of you that in order to be able to create something beautiful, you have to really focus upon it. You have to put your energies into it. And to a certain degree, what's also coming up is that may require you to kind of compress what you've been doing into something more solid. Okay. Where else am I going with this? Where else am I going with this card this week? Yeah, it just keeps coming up again that there's this fragmented energy that's happening to you this week. You're feeling fragmented, you're feeling scattered. And one of the ways that you can overcome this is to really get organized this week. Make some lists and make them a priority, and don't allow yourself to get what some people call squirreled. You know, like you might be sitting at your desk and you see a squirrel go by and you're like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And then all of a sudden you come back to your desk and you're like, what was I doing? Oh, phone call? No. Oh, read that? No. Okay. You can sense, like, even as I'm trying to give you this reading, I keep picking up on that scattered energy, and the reading is going all over the place. So this card really is a calling to you this week to pay attention to what you're doing. I'm also getting a sense of, this came up really, really urgently. If you're not paying attention to what you're doing this week, there is the potential and the opportunity for harm. Okay, so if you are operating a large piece of equipment, including driving a car or a truck, you're being called upon this week to focus on what it is that you're doing. If for whatever reason, and I have no idea why, but I'm going to put it out there anyway, if you're operating a forklift, pay attention to what you're doing. I have no idea why or where that came up from, but I just had this image flash before my eyes of somebody operating a forklift and something being knocked over. Okay, so pay attention to what you're doing this week. Really, really focus on what you're doing this week. Because if you're not, there's going to be that scattered feeling. There's going to be that feeling of not being able to accomplish what you set out to accomplish. So let's see what your shadow card is this week, which is always the bottom card. Intention. Well, that makes perfect sense. Okay. The mountain and intention is your shadow card. This is what's being hidden from you, or what you are hiding from yourself this week is your intentions. If this is your dominant card this week, you need to focus. And if you're not focusing, it's because you haven't set intentions. So I'm going to make a suggestion. And as I mentioned, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. Take this suggestion however it resonates with you. It's up to you how you interpret this. But I am going to make a suggestion that tonight, being the representation of the new year for many people on the planet, people who recognize and acknowledge the pagan traditions, this is New Year's Eve. This is a wonderful time to start new habits. So for those of you that selected deck number 2 this week, this is just a suggestion. Get yourself a diary, a journal, a little notebook of some kind. And on Sunday evenings, write out your intentions for the week and revisit those intentions throughout the week. So on Monday, pull out your little notebook and say, hey, I got a little bit squirreled. Oops, bring it back to the intention. Tuesday, look at it, and maybe you can even tick a few things off on your list of things that you've accomplished. And as you have this focus in your life of setting intentions, which is something that is lacking, I believe, in your lives right now, things will become more crystal clear, if that makes sense, right? That's why this crystal is here. Because if we're not setting intentions, if this is in our shadow position and we're not setting intentions, then how can we ever create crystals in our lives? The only way that a crystal can be created is through that focused pressure that the earth puts on the minerals that then become the crystal quartz. Okay, so for those of you that had deck number 2 this week, I really, really encourage you to really focus what you want to do. Create your intentions really, really clearly this week, and not just this week. Make it a habit going forward. I'm sensing that for those of you that selected this card this week, this deck, it's less about the energies this week and more about like just in general, this is something that you need in your life. All right, moving on to those of you who selected the rose quartz. And again, I mentioned that this piece of rose quartz is not polished, it's raw. So for those of you that selected the rose quartz, this will be your reading, and I'll be reading from the Denise Lynn Sacred Traveler Oracle cards. So let's pull them over. And Sacred Traveler, what would you like people who selected deck number 3 to know this week? What is the dominant energy for them? I sense this is going to take a minute. Yeah, the cards are kind of sticking together at the moment. So, all right, Sacred Traveler, we need a card, please. There we go. All right, can you see there's a card sticking up there? So that will be your card of dominant energies this week. All right, your card of dominant energies this week is Crossing Bridges. It's time for healing, connecting, mending, and releasing. It's interesting that rose quartz traditionally aligns with the heart chakra. The pink, the rose, the energy of rose quartz traditionally aligns with the energy of love and forgiveness. And that's the card that you have this week. It's time for healing, connecting, mending, and releasing. Okay. So for those of you that selected the rose quartz this week, in order to be able to move forward this week, you need to take a good hard look at what's been going on in your life. And if there are people or situations that require some crossing of bridges and some forgiveness, really explore that. If somebody has done you wrong, forgiveness doesn't mean saying what they did to you was okay. Because chances are, if your heart and soul believes that what they did to you was not okay, then it wasn't okay. Okay? Crazy wig. Forgiveness is about you letting go of the anger that you're holding in your heart. It's not about saying that what they did was okay and allowing them back into your life in order to be able to potentially do it again. That's not what forgiveness is. That's not what crossing bridges is about, although it can be. Okay. If your perception and what you want to do is to cross the bridge, meet the person halfway and allow them back into your life, then by all means do it. And what this card is saying is that the energies this week are conducive to you doing that. But this card is also a card of forgiveness. There is a saying, and I'm probably going to screw the saying up, but the gist of the saying is that if you're walking around with a whole whack of anger, the only person that the anger is affecting is you. The only person that the anger is hurting is you. And so this card is asking you to release that anger this week. Because if you're angry at another person, are you actually hurting them by walking around being miserable, by overeating or not eating enough, by not going out with your friends because you're angry at somebody else? Is that hurting them? No, it's only hurting you. And the only way to release that is forgiveness. The only way to release that is to heal that within yourself, to say, I'm not okay with what the other person did. but I'm willing to let go of those emotions, because walking around with this heart of stone is not serving my highest good. It's not allowing me the freedom that I need in my life to be able to experience life to its fullest. Okay? It's about releasing this week. That is your dominant energy. If you feel like you know, if it's a situation where somebody just needs to say, I'm sorry, okay, then the energy is right for crossing the bridges and mending that bridge. But if it's a question of what somebody else did to you is unforgivable, you just need to let go of that energy that's making your heart into a heart of stone. It doesn't mean letting them back into your life. So let's see what your shadow energy is. Great adventure. Take a risk and venture forward. This is what's being hidden from you right now. So if we're in a place of a heart of stone, if we're in the place of holding on to the damage that we perceive that somebody else has done to us, and I'm not discounting it by any means. I'm not trying to suppress it. People can be downright cruel, mean, and nasty. Let's face it. And so if you've experienced something in your life that you're not comfortable with, you don't have to cross the bridge, but you do have to release that energy out of your heart. You don't have to let that person back in. But if you're walking around with a heart of stone, then what are you hiding from yourself? What are you preventing yourself from having? What's your shadow? The next great adventure. You can't have a great adventure. You can't take risks if you're stuck in the past. This card is about being stuck in the energies of the past. And this card is your shadow card. And this card is about moving forward in this deck. And you can't move forward if you're stuck in the past. So for those of you that had the rose quartz this week, I encourage you, forgive. And like I said, the misunderstanding with forgiveness is not going up to the person and saying, hey, it's okay. That's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is releasing the bonds that are around your heart. Forgiveness is letting go of that anger that's preventing you from going out and experiencing the next great adventure. All right. So thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you for celebrating with me. Happy New Year. Happy Samhain to all of you. Happy Day of the Dead. Happy Halloween. Get out there and experience life, everyone, because we only have this one. Thank you so much. Take care.